Upstairs at the Conneaut Arts Center, people are dancing, learning instruments, learning lines for a play, socializing. But downstairs, in the basement, it is all about woodworking. There the artists have an array of patterns, materials, and tools as they learn their craft. On a cold evening, when others are burning wood, these people are creating art from wood.
Well, years ago, my dad used to give me his pocket knife, and he'd say, hey, he says, oh, Mom's coming, give me the knife, you know. So I'd sit there and carve a little bit. I didn't do a whole lot, but then eventually, years later, he got me a little set of carving tools, and he said, oh, you always like to play around with knives. You ought to carve something. So eventually I did, and my first carving was of a snake.
Was it good?
Snakes. Yeah, it was pretty good. It was okay. It was a walking stick, actually, snake on a walking stick. So, but I had, thought, yeah, this is enjoyable. And then I heard about the classes here and took Dean Horton's carving class. And of course, this is Dean Horton's carving class but he's gone now. So just carrying on. Well, a lot of people will say, oh, I'm too nervous, or I don't have enough patience. You need a lot of patience for wood carving, and not really, because you learn to be patient, because you've got that knife in your hand, and it's real sharp, you know, and you go, oh, I better be careful. Yeah, so you're concentrating so much on what you're doing that you don't, you don't have that much, you don't have
Is this something anybody can learn? You must have to have a certain amount of talent.
No, not really. Anybody can carve, and with a little bit of instruction. I bet you could. One thing you do have to have the little bit of artistic ability as far as you want to do something in the arts, because some people can sit down and they can carve. They say, oh, I never picked up a knife, never did anything. And once they've done it, they're really excited over it, and they think, oh, this is a lot more fun than I thought it would be. But you'd be sitting there and you're carving, and it's like, oh, can't believe 2 hours went by, and you're concentrating so much, you know. And there's a couple of people in the class. Well, one gentleman that he has a habit, his hands kind of shake a little bit. So he said, oh yeah, it really actually helps him. When people say, oh, my hands shake and it's too hard to carve, but it's not really, because you're concentrating. That's that concentration when you're doing that, you know. Books and just about anything you can think of, you can carve, and especially if you have a little bit of a pattern. And then usually I pre-cut the wood, so you don't start out with just a square piece of wood. You have a lot extra wood to cut off that way. But I pre-cut some of it, so it has a basic shape of the animal. This is going to be a zebra. And it's a comical little one, and it's called a shelf zebra because it sits on a shelf. We usually do 2 festivals a year, and actually most of the time the class is just they're demonstrating and showing people how to carve and talking to them about the knives and the classes and everything. We used to have young people come in, like 7, 8 years old, and so if they knew how to handle a knife, But kids nowadays, they're pretty jittery, and they can't sit still for more than 5 minutes. And if you're not watching them, you can't be watching them every single minute, and they could get cut pretty bad. So eventually everybody gets cut. Sooner or later, you end up cutting yourself, and it's one of those things where it's expected when you're working with knives, but you don't. Young kids. Main thing is their hands are so small and everything. I mean, they could do a lot more damage to their hands. Yeah, sometimes if something breaks off, like an ear or a leg or something, sometimes they can be glued back on, and it takes a little bit of work to get it just right so you can't see it, and especially if they're going to paint the item. But most of the time, if it's something small, it can be repaired. But most of the time, if it's really bad, they'll say, well, it's good firewood. Some people think, oh, I don't have the time for it. But even if you just sit down and you carve for an hour or so, it's like, oh, that's...
Does it take all your attention? Can you be sitting and watching TV or something while doing it, or is that dangerous?
that's kind of dangerous. I do something. Well, I don't watch it. Sometimes I'll be listening, or something. But I don't. You can't. If you've got that knife in your hands, you don't want to be actually watching TV or looking at a computer. Or you get a phone call and you put your knife down. You don't want to. There's knives, chisels. There's so many different shapes and sizes of knives and different kinds of chisels and. The tools, a lot of times people will use power carvers, and which is like a Dremel, but it's the ones we use are called Fordhams, and they have a lot more power. And so whatever you're doing all that, you really don't need any distractions, right? You need to have total concentration.
Well, you get a piece of wood and you have to have it sanded with a real fine sandpaper to make a good surface to wood burn on. And I'll take basswood or Italian poplar, two good woods to wood burn on. Ones that don't have very much grain are good woods, aspen. And a lot of times I'll take a pattern or I'll take a picture that I've taken with my camera, and then I'll copy it onto the board. And that way you don't have to draw your own pattern. If you want to, you could. And these wood burners we have today are more like a pen than the old-fashioned wood burners. And there's different tips you can put on them to get different effects. And it has a temperature control, so you can barely show a line, or you can have a real dark line. And you can color the wood burnings. I have some over here that are colored. And you can use colored pencils or oil pencils. You can use acrylic paints. And that'll add something to them, or you can leave them just the plain old wood burning. And then you put a protective finish on, and you're all done.
So how long have you been carving?
About 6 years, 5, 6 years. Not very long. I took private lessons before I started carving because I wanted to make sure I could do it, because I'm not really artistic. I've never been able to draw, I've never been able to paint or any of that stuff. But I wanted to learn how to carve, so I just took private lessons. I said, well, if I can do it with a private person, then I think I can go to the class. So
you took lessons so you could take lessons?
Yes, I did. I took lessons so I could come to the class because I didn't want to look bad.
I've done chip carving. I've carved spoons. I've carved animals in a round.
Tell us about the purse.
Oh, that was an anniversary present to my wife. A lady came from Andover. She had gourds, and she says, anybody want to learn how to paint gourds and either make a gourd candy dish or a purse? And I said, yeah, I'd like to make a purse for my wife for her anniversaries. That's a clematis vine around the circumference of it, and then I have a sunflower on one side and a butterfly on the other.